So we start with a banger, Landfall versus Monarch.
Landfall is really, really good. Like, Landfall is an ability that triggers every time that any land enters the battlefield under your control, and can be abused a lot in modern formats with like fetch lands.
Also, sometimes it checks just if you've played a land this turn, when it enters the battlefield, it'll do something maybe on an instant or sorcery spell. And then there's Monarch, which is very cool. It's more of a commander or popper mechanic, but basically as soon as you become the Monarch, at the beginning of your end step, you just draw an extra card.
But the monarchy can be taken away from you at any second. Well, not at any second, only in combat. That is, if a creature deals combat damage to the Monarch, the owner of that creature becomes the new Monarch.
Landfall just has some feel good though as well, because sometimes you need to top deck something, but you top deck a land. Oh, but I get to trigger Landfall. But it's true that it only involves one person, and Monarch involves everyone at the table. They all feel like they have an in.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Monarch goes forward. Mechanics are a key rule in Magic that repeats within the game. They're very popular, and we're pitting the 16 best ones in a single elimination tournament to find out which is the best.
Now, living weapon or kicker?
Ooh. Kicker is when you play a spell, you get an extra cost that you can pay, and you'll add an extra ability that is listed with that cost to the card. So you can add effects to the spell, or sometimes double it if you have multi-kicker, which is the same thing, but you can repeat it.
But living weapon is when an equipment enters the battlefield, it produces a 0/0 black germ token, and it automatically equips itself onto it.
That's lucky because the germ would die.
Yeah, otherwise. Also, most living weapons equipments do give some sort of toughness. I personally find living weapon a bit more fun, just because I get to, the equipments are fun, creatures are fun, kicker is very abstract.
Kicker is known as the strongest mechanic.
But we're not going after power, are we? We're here for the fun.
Okay, living weapon it is.
Living weapon moves on. Ranking Magic mechanics is a very subjective matter, but we tried to go by one metric and one metric only, and while we could have chosen power or design, we instead opted to rank these mechanics by how fun they are.
Number 3, Convoke and Raid. Now Raid is really simple because it's just if a creature attacked this turn, something happens. Yeah. You've got creatures that if they attack, you've got spells that when they are cast or enter the battlefield, if a creature attacked this turn, something different happens.
Now, Convoke also has to do with tapping your creatures, but it generates mana. Convoke basically turns every one of your creatures into a mana dork, just for that spell. So a 7-cost spell you can cast by tapping 7 creatures, or 5 creatures and 2 land. Pretty good.
I'd say that although they're both powerful, Convoke feels a lot more fun, because you're tapping a lot of creatures to play a big spell and getting this payoff. Well, Raid is just if you attack.
Yeah, but you do get a payoff off attacking. Doesn't attacking feel
There's
good?
always a payoff of attacking, which is getting to deal damage to your opponent.
Yeah, and I guess you're right. It feels very satisfying if you get to, tap your entire board for this awesome thing.
It's a team effort.
So is this. Convoke moves on.
Now there are many, many mechanics in Magic the Gathering, and you deserve better than to spend 4 hours watching us rank them. So we picked the top 16 best designed, most fun, and most powerful together, and now we're gonna cut to the one most fun.
For our next matchup, we've got Devotion.
Oh, that is a fun one.
It's so good. Devotion is basically just you count the colored mana pips of permanents on your side of the board, right? So your Devotion to black is just as many black colored mana symbols that you have on the board, versus Meld.
Meld is cool because it doesn't happen very often in Magic. Usually what it requires is you to have 2 specific cards on the board. And then at some point in the game, either you trigger it or it checks to see if you have both. You flip both cards and combine them into one mega giant awesome card.
And that's awesome. That just feels really, really awesome.
This one is so hard because Devotion is so fun. They made a mechanic like that before that didn't really work, and then they came back with the idea that you can play monocolored decks. It rewards you. Yeah, it rewards you for playing more green pips, more black pips. You can do big things with it.
Cards featuring Devotion are some of the most powerful cards you can play in the game. Like, Grey Merchant is a giant threat in mono black decks, and Nykthos might be the best land available in modern times.
Brizella is almost always the biggest card on the table.
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I feel like either way that we decide, it's gonna be the wrong way, because Meld is super, super cool, but you cannot do it every expansion, right?
But you get to tell stories about it in a way that you never can with Devotion. Yeah, it's cool. Sometimes you tap Nykthos.
I had 16 Devotion. Yeah.
But if someone tells you they melded good. Even like the silly rats one with the 5 mana dude that brings back the rat. Even that is exciting. The lands, you make a house out of your land. It's these big moments that you get to talk about from that commander table.
I mean, we did say we're ranking on fun, so...
Now it is.
Now, cycling or ninjutsu?
Oh, ninjutsu is so fun. But cycling is when you get to pay a cost on a card. So the card just does this regular thing, but when it's in your hand, you get to pay a specific mana cost, discard it, and then draw another card, which is the most fun thing in Magic.
It's also very, like, it makes it very flexible, right? You can have a very situational card with cycling because, if the situation doesn't come up, you just cycle it away. Now, ninjutsu, on the other hand, is not flexible at all because ninjutsu allows you to return an unblocked creature from the battlefield attacking back to your hand and instead put in the ninja that now is unblocked and attacking and, you know, gets to deal damage.
Specific thing possible. You need to have a creature that's attacking and it needs to not be blocked.
And personally, for me, that just evokes more fun memories. You know, the time I got to sneak through damage for lethal, or the time that I got to save my creature and be sneaky with it around removal spells.
It's true that there's nothing more fun than attacking and then your opponent... Actually, it's one of the only mechanics that's fun for both players because for you, you attack and you get to sneak in a creature, but for your opponent, they get to think like, oh, is there a ninja hiding behind that ornithopter? Who knows? Let's play around it.
It's so tense, and I don't feel that tension at all with cycling, because with cycling it's just, oh, they cycled something. Ninjutsu. Our next matchup involves two of the fan favorites. There's flashback cards, which are instants or sorceries that you can just cast again from the graveyard for a different cost, usually also mana. Well, no, it's not kicker. Or double-faced cards. That one is very much kicker, because how does it work?
Double-faced is not kicker, because the way it works is that you can have a variety of different reasons to flip your card around. Sometimes it's if your opponent didn't cast spells the last turn. Sometimes it's if you paid a certain amount of mana, or if you reveal an instant or sorcery from the top of your
Recently,
library.
we even got cards that you can cast again from the graveyard, kind of like flashback, disturb, and then they come back flipped. So that's kind of flashback and double.
Or even cards, modal cards, where you can choose which side of the card you want to play. Now, it's a lot of mechanics that branch into this one specific mechanic, but it's so popular because it gives so much more modality to your card.
It's extremely popular because with every game piece, in every game, you'll experience this, you run out of design space. I would say flashback is the better designed mechanic, in my opinion, but we're not here to talk about design, we're here to talk about fun.
Making your 1/1 human turn into a 3/2 flyer, or even other bigger things, your Avacyn. Oh no, something died, she's upset. She turns into a giant angry thing and deals a bunch of damage on the board, and the best way to represent that is to flip the card. Because they get to do one cool storytelling thing with two-sided cards, which is show the first part of the story on one side and the other part on the other side, and it really feels like you've entered
There's
a new
definitely
zone.
a better story to double-sided cards.
Yeah, it makes it forward. Now this one is weird. It's amass and morph. Now amass is a way they try to solve showing that you have an army without making a million tokens, because the problem with a million tokens is they just block forever. So they decided that whenever you amass, you create an army. If you don't have one, it can be orcs, it can just be a regular army, it could be zombies. And then if you already have one, you just add a +1/+1 counter on it. So it grows and grows and grows into this giant tower that sure can't block a million things, although an army I feel could block a lot of things. In this case, it just feels like you've got this biggest mass that's growing and growing.
Yeah, compared to Morph, where they tried to show nothing, because you're not showing your creature. You're putting it face down for 3 mana as a 2/2 creature, and then at any point in the future, you can reveal it for its morph cost. Now, Amass is kind of flavorful, but I don't feel anything when I play with it. If you write Amass 1, to me, you might as well just write, put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures, or create a 1/1. Like, it doesn't feel different.
It's true that it has tons of flavor, but fun-wise, it's not really there. Well, Morph have almost 0 flavor, but fun-wise, it's super there.
Yeah, whereas Amass, it's just, yeah, it's
like they attack with their 2/2. It could be anything. And if ninjutsu was fun,
yeah,
definitely. Morph it is. So now we have investigate or monstrous.
Investigate is a staple of Magic, right? Like
They've brought it up a lot.
It's so powerful. It gives you artifact permanence.
Tokens.
Yeah. Like, I mean, every time you investigate, you get a clue token. That's an artifact token that you can sacrifice for 2 mana to draw a card.
And monstrous, on the other hand, is kicker. Monstrous is basically when you get to play a creature. It's usually a monster of some kind. And you play it, it has its own abilities, but then it has an extra monstrous cost. So if it is not monstrous, you get to pay that cost, it becomes monstrous, and then usually gets a slew of other abilities. It usually gets bigger. It usually has an ability when it becomes monstrous, or a static ability. It's basically you play a card, and then you later level it up.
Yeah, it's like this one-time explosion you get to witness when leveling it up. And you really don't have an explosion with Investigate. The entire explosion is I draw a card.
So the Investigate tokens are slightly less exciting than treasures. They are drawing an extra card.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of them has a feather on it. How fun can that be?
I mean, yeah, clue tokens just cluttering up every board these days. My monstrous Hydra, not very much, unless you count the dice that go on top of it, because I put so many dice on it.
Monstrous goes forward.
We're moving on to the quarterfinals.
The top 8.
And for our first one, we've got Living Weapon or the Monarchy.
Oh, both of those are tremendously fun.
They are. Both are.
Yeah, because Living Weapon, both of them prevent a feel bad, right? Monarch prevents the feel bad of there's always one opponent you have to attack in a commander game, because you could diversify it around, and it's a feel good because it passes it around to a lot of people. While Living Weapon is a feel good because sometimes you draw an equipment card, but you don't have any creatures. Someone wiped the board, but now it always comes with a creature.
Yeah. I would argue in 1v1 games it becomes too polarizing for my taste, and I would vote for Living Weapon. But between both 1v1 games and multiplayer games, I would give it to the Monarchy.
Yeah, let's go with that.
We've got two very expensive mechanics. Meld and Convoke, both of which usually require a bunch of mana to be invested before they do something. Or rather, tapped creatures, because, you know, Convoke, you need a bunch of creatures on the board for that. What'd you say?
But they both made it to the quarterfinals, so they both must be quite fun.
They are.
And both have a big payoff. Like, you tap on your creatures, make a big creature. Or you combine 2 cards and make both of them is a big thing. And I think it goes to which one is better at storytelling. Which one do you tell a better tale of how this happened? And I think Meld still rides that horse.
I can't disagree, because yes, I get to Convoke, and maybe I even get to Convoke a second time with a new creature or something, but that doesn't even come close to that one time. I remember a video on this very channel where I melded Urza together with the other thing, and then everything went crazy.
That was really cool. Yeah, Meld. It's got to be Meld. Third quarters, ninjutsu or double-faced. So ninjutsu is still when you attack and your creature's not blocked, you get to swatch it in. And double-faced is all the things that let you flip the card around. It's planeswalkers, it's werewolves, it's insectile aberrations.
Yeah, there is a lot of gameplay to flip cards, right? Because 2 cards can hold double the amount of text, but that's also their downfall.
Both of them have hidden text, but one of them, in its simplicity, only needs one side of hidden text. Okay, let's go for the optimal side. Let's go for ninjutsu. It's got more of a bang. Now we have basically the same mechanic, to some extent. Monstrous and Morph each allow you to pay a certain amount of mana for a creature, and then a certain extra amount of mana for a usually bigger or better creature.
Yeah, also many morph creatures do have effects when they get unmorphed, so it basically is, morph is basically monstrous.
With one caveat.
You don't know what it morphs into.
Which
That's
I would argue is way more fun.
I don't think this is close.
Yeah, this is easy.
Yeah.
Morph makes it to the semifinals. Okay, which one advances to the finals? Is it Meld or Monarch?
All right, remember how I said I dislike double-faced cards because they have so much text on them occasionally? Meld cards have a bunch of text too.
Even more, because there's 2 cards on the back.
Yep. However, there's so much fewer Meld cards. Like, you know, I can take a lot of text every once in a while, but not all the time. So Meld does.
It's like, you know how Monsters just pack to punch? Meld packs an even bigger punch because it's like the flip cards and the Monsters cards combined, because you get to flip these 2 cards, make a big monster out of them, and it doesn't happen very often. It's funny to say, but Monarch is probably the most democratic between the 2.
Yeah.
Because if we're looking at just fun, you're right that Meld, you do get to do this big thing, and then you get to tell the story about how you flipped it into a giant beast.
Yeah.
But Monarch, you get to become the Monarch, draw some more cards, people love drawing cards, but then people can try to become the Monarch, and you get to defend your title, and then other people can become the Monarch as well.
It's not only great for gameplay, but also for like the politics talk at the table, or just general talk at the table. Like, you get to smack talk the Monarch because they're at an advantage.
Because they're the Monarch.
Do we settle on the Monarch?
Yeah.
Monarchy.
I normally don't want to sponsor that.
No.
Last one to see what enters the finals. Ninjutsu or Morph. 2 powerful mechanics.
Both are very combat-based, usually.
And they revolve around Mystery.
Mystery. I think that's a big theme so far, at least. Like anything that involves surprises or like, you know, these emotional aspects.
I would say Morph has more chance of being a feel bad because you always make a 2/2 for 3 mana. And it's really easy to destroy a 2/2. So if you have your big payoff and you put it down because that's all you can do in turn 3 and then you destroy it, you never get the big surprise moment.
Whereas with ninjutsu, you usually do.
Or at least you get the double surprise where you're like, attack with 2 creatures. Then, I don't know, Western music starts playing. Then
they block with 1.
yes, and then haha, I have a ninja.
Haha, I have a lightning bolt.
Oh no, double surprise. See how much fun that was?
That was very fun.
At which point I would say ninjutsu makes it to the finals. Let's go. So it's the finals, and we will finally discover which is the best mechanic, the most fun mechanic in Magic, and it's between Monarch and Ninjutsu.
Both are so fun.
Both are iconic to the game. It's funny because Ninjutsu wasn't printed often. It was reprinted only recently in a main set and in a few commander decks, and it's still one of the most popular mechanics, even though there's not that many. They keep on having to add supplementary ninjas. But on the other hand, Monarch lets you play with a crown.
Yeah, ninjutsu enabled so many cool strategies, also with creatures. Like you get to play creatures that you would never deem playable. I think we agree that in purely multiplayer games, the monarchy is just by far the most fun thing you can do, just because it's this fight for power that everyone gets to be involved in.
There's new stakes involved.
Because you can form alliances, you can pass it around, you can, like, it's way more fun. But now also considering 1 versus 1 formats, can the fun of ninjutsu in 1 versus 1 outweigh the fun of monarchy in Commander?
Or if we look at it another angle, can ninjutsu in multiplayer be more fun than Monarch in single player?
I would argue that's the case.
Ninjutsu makes you friends and monarchy makes you enemies.
That's such wise words, Carl. But so the honorable mention goes to the monarchy because being the monarch is just the best mechanic in multiplayer games, but overall of Magic, ninjutsu takes the trophy.
Yeah, ninjutsu is the best mechanic of all time. What happens if you have a ninja who becomes the monarch? Would you know that they were the monarch or not? Because they're so sneaky.
They're very sneaky. Would you only see the crown flying around? That would actually be a downgrade for any ninja.